Prices. To discuss all of this, I'm joined now by the United States Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, who is in town. And first off, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and I guess before we get to all of that, what brings you to Washington State?
Well, we're here to look at some great projects that we're supporting through the funds in President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure fund. It always feels great to get out here and see the work that we're doing on the ground. In the past, I've had a chance to be out in Wenatchee, where we're doing a big project there. We were up in Tacoma looking at the port right now, getting ready to look at ferries, and then we'll be down in Port Orchard, which was successful in getting a grant to do a much-needed repair on the breakwater there that's so important to fishing, cargo, and ferry operations there. So looking forward to hugging the coastline a little bit today after getting some great visits in central and eastern Washington state in the past. And, anytime you come to this state, you see so many examples of how important infrastructure is in all its forms, trains, planes, automobiles, but also things like ferries that a lot of people in other parts of the U.S. maybe don't think about as much. And we thought it was important to get out here and tell that story.
Transportation certainly an issue, particularly in the metro Seattle area. It's kind of landlocked or waterlocked, as it were, not a lot of space. How do you go about rebuilding the infrastructure, not only of Seattle, but of the nation, when much of it is just decades old and beyond its lifespan? Well,
this is just the issue that we've been dealing with as a country, and it's one of the reasons we pushed so hard for that infrastructure bill, and we're so glad to finally get it through Congress and to the president's desk. The truth is, last 30 or 40 years, our country has not invested enough in our infrastructure, and it shows. I've been at tunnels that are absolutely critical to rail traffic in the United States that are 100 years or even 150 years old. Yesterday I was at a rail facility, a bridge in Lexington that was very well designed by the standards when it went up. That was more than 80 years ago. And it has needed repair and replacement for some time. That's certainly true in a high growth area like the Seattle region. There's so much economic activity, so much growth that requires good infrastructure here. And so the country is playing catch up a little bit. But the good news is we have the funds now to make these big investments. A lot of those funds have been headed here to Washington State. And I'm going to be taking close notes here, too, from this visit to take back to some of the work that we're doing in the future.
What are some of the big projects that are being funded through that infrastructure plan?
Well, like I mentioned, we're going to be able to see that Port Orchard breakwater project. That's one of the very newest that we've just announced. In Blaine, by the border, we're doing a railway grade separation. That's really important for safety as well as supply chains. Anytime you can get rid of a scenario where you've got an important rail crossing a highway, you got a safety benefit there. They're doing a new trail improvement, filling in the gaps on the Pacific multi-use trail around the Puget Sound. Shoreline is getting a bridge improvement that's going to help ease congestion near their future light rail station there. Jefferson County is getting a bridge fixed, working with the Shoalwater Bay Indian tribe, who are getting $24 million to help relocate a road. So tons of activity going on here, whether we're talking about trains and transit, ferries, roads and bridges. And, in many ways, we're just getting warmed up here. Now we're announcing the funds, getting closer and closer to those construction phases. Now there's going to be a lot of construction. You're going to see that. And of course, that can bring an inconvenience temporarily. But when it's done, we're all going to be so much better off. And it's going to be great in terms of jobs as well, with those good paying jobs that come with these construction projects. We're working to make sure more and more people get a chance to get into that career, including maybe people who didn't have a chance in the past or people who've been underrepresented. We are working hard, teaming up with the Washington State DOT to make it easier for working mothers, people of color, people who just maybe didn't know as a kind of family tradition that construction could be for them, because we're going to have a lot of good jobs for years building all of this stuff.
And then this past week, obviously one of the biggest flying weeks of the year and one of the biggest weeks since the pandemic, we saw the system stressed a little bit. Some airlines, notably Southwest, over the last year or so, that's had a lot of trouble with outdated infrastructure on their part, whether it's systems to get people checked in or it's air traffic control. What is the department, what is the Biden administration doing to kind of alleviate some of those problems with the American air system?
Well, we've really been been pushing the airlines to step up their game. A lot of them were caught unprepared last year by how quickly air travel recovered after COVID. And so we had really extraordinary and unacceptable levels of cancellations and delays, even on days when the weather was fine. This year is a different story. Delays and cancellations are down significantly this year. Last week got hit with severe weather at a number of hubs. So there were bad delays and cancellations that a lot of Americans, including me, got caught up in. But for the most part, we've been hovering at or below a 2% cancellation rate, which is more in the range of what you would expect to see. And the system's responding to a lot of demand. Matter of fact, there was one day last week that we reported the highest number of air travel passengers, we believe, ever in American history. So in the short term, we're doing this work with the airlines to improve operations. We're improving FAA's ability to support these operations with air traffic control. But for the long run, it's going to come back to infrastructure. And that's why we're making a lot of investments in the airport infrastructure in the United States. We have another $16 million headed to SeaTac to help them with a TSA checkpoint. Moving that's going to help passengers flow more smoothly. Spokane, I was out at their airport, saw what they're trying to do to improve capacity there. I'm glad that they're getting support. $15 million headed that way, because you really do need to build for this. Everybody's got a part. The airlines have a part. They got to have the staffing and the systems to keep up. We've got a part because we oversee the air traffic control system, and we're pushing hard to get more staff and more technology into the FAA. And then it's the airports where you really need to have that built infrastructure that's going to support this traffic, because we project that air travel demand is only going to grow from here, which is a good sign economically, but you got to be prepared for that.
And then what about mass transit here on the West Coast? There's certainly a car culture relative to the East Coast that uses a lot of buses and trains and the like. How do you convince people to start carpooling and using these mass transit options?
We got to make sure the options are attractive. You got to make sure that they are reliable, that they are a clean, enjoyable, safe experience, so that whether you have a car or not, you're more likely to choose transit, which means less congestion, it means less pollution, and it means you can use your land in a more efficient way. Not that long ago for Seattle, $33 million came over in funding to help get low and no emission buses. That program also gets dollars to help train the workforce, because when you're working on these newer electric type buses, they require different skills than the old diesel buses. Same thing with the ferries. Matter of fact, I'm looking out the window right now at some of the ferries going across the Sound here. I know how important that is as a form of transit here. And then I would add active transportation. And that's one thing that I think people in this region probably have a leg up on a lot of the rest of the country, is understanding the value and the attractiveness of walking and biking. But here too, we got to make it convenient, easy, and safe. And that's why when you talk about things like adding protected bike lanes as part of a road project, or some of the pedestrian bridges we're building out here, that's not just a nice to have, bells and whistles kind of feature. I mean, if you get it right, that is a matter of life safety, and it reduces congestion because more people feel that it might be right for them to walk or bike to where they're going.
And finally, we like to end on a bit of a lighter note. We know you're a big fan. A lot of Star Trek fans in the newsroom. Wanted to know what you think of all the new shows out there.
Oh, I love it. I'm still playing catch up. I don't watch TV as much as I ought to, so I'm catching up on that. I like that the third season of Picard is kind of returning to home base, not just getting the gang back together. But I love that the story. Yeah, I was willing to go out on the more far out ride in the first and second season, but I like that we're kind of getting back to basics on that. I'll always love Star Trek. It's just I grew up on that, and always captured my imagination. And I suppose it might be a bit of a stretch, but I'd like to think it's all about transportation.
All right, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks. Nice being with you. Take care.
Still to